why self-publish, and I thought my aims are to sort of show you my experiments with self-publishing, and to argue that every serious creative writing student should have a go at it, and that you guys should possibly set up collectives and self-publish through collectives and use the tools of self-publishing to build a career for yourself. A bit about myself. I did an MA in creative writing in 1990 at UEA with Malcolm Bradbury and Rose Tremaine. I've been teaching on and off for 25 years. I wrote a best-selling book called I'm a Teacher, Get Me Out of Here in 2004. And then I've had substantial advances from traditional publishers, for Yob Nation, Parent Power, Working the System, and even my last novel, Last Day of Term. And I've been working with Blake Morrison since 2009 on a creative writing PhD and doing some educational research. I suppose what I'm interested in the paradigms of publishing. I think the old paradigm was very much embodied by writers like William Boyd, Margaret Atwood, Martin Amis, Julian Barnes, McEwan. These writers all emerged by having small advances that progressively got bigger, and the publishing houses that took them on really developed them. And so they weren't initially successful. If you look at someone like Boyd, to begin with, or even Margaret Atwood, they weren't that successful, but they were really believed in by the publishing house, and they've become, amazing best-selling phenomena since then. So literary reviewing played a big part in all of these people's careers. It covered their costs, and they were able to book review for publications and get by. And that was a slow burner kind of one. And then you've got the sensation, someone like Zadie Smith getting a huge advance. Bo Fowler, he's interesting. He got 120 grand for a novel and he disappeared, but so that's something to talk about. Harry Kunzru. This then led on to quite prestigious jobs and media work for those writers. They became celebrities and acquired prizes. I would argue, I think there's a new paradigm in publishing emerging. I think it's emerging from blogging, social media, that's then leading to people writing books. And you can see a number of non-fiction books emerging from this. It's much more target-oriented than it was. There's a lot of fan fiction, self-help books, diet books are particularly successful. The prolific writer, someone who writes a huge amount, and likes to, is free now through the self-publishing model just to publish all the time. And some people have built actually relatively successful careers if you look on this. And then the niche writer can publish through small presses or set up their own press and at relatively low cost. And this is something I'm interested in with a photographer friend of mine. We're going to publish through a kind of art publisher new edition of Songs of Innocence and Experience, William Blake sort of edition of poems, and we can do that in a way that you couldn't do it 20 years ago because it was just too expensive to do. And I think we're increasingly seeing the book as calling card. I mean, I'll talk about my self-publishing in a minute, but for example, just I've done a study guide, self-published it, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is a calling card to doing some festival work, talking about the book at various teaching kind of conferences and stuff. And then I think what's gone is relying on advances and book reviewing and that sort of thing. So the worlds of D.J. Taylor and Hugo Williams and that sort of milieu, I think, really is disappearing from the writing world. Are we seeing a collapse of publishing? I mean, the person Jamie was mentioning, that we can't mention their name, Amazon is really dominating the market in quite a scary way. I think some people might not quite like me in the way I've used Amazon for myself, but we'll talk about that later possibly. Bookshops are disappearing, publishers are struggling, and there is a rise in self-publishing. Advantages of self-publishing. You get control of your own work. Print on demand means it's cheap now. So it isn't the vanity project it used to be, where you actually had to raise maybe £1,000, £2,000 to have a print run of 500, 1,000 copies, that's gone with print on demand. Ebooks can look professional. Royalties go straight to you. I mean, Amazon are offering kind of 70% royalties on a lot of their books. Disadvantages are there's no quality control. It's not as professional looking. I mean, I'll show you the stuff I've been experimenting with. You know, I've got to be honest with you, it's never going to be like Bloomsbury are going to do a book. But I'll talk about the reasons why I've decided to go for it in certain cases. There is no advance. There's a lot of self-publishing kind of websites out there. I've listed them. I'll send the email, the PowerPoint round. But you know, Amazon is the lead with CreateSpace, and I'll show you the books I've done in a minute if you want to pass those around through CreateSpace. And they also have Kindle Direct Publishing. The great thing about CreateSpace is it is cheap for a self-publisher. You don't have to buy the ISBN. You don't have to pay any money up front. So it is a serious kind of proposition. Then you have other ones where you're paying like BookBaby, Blurb, Lulu, Smashwords. You're paying kind of a kind of fee, a flat fee, maybe roughly about £70 to kind of go through their processes. Each site is worth looking at if you're interested in it, because things like Lulu has this amazing title search thing where you can just type in different titles and see what's the most popular. And each site has a kind of unique USP. Smashwords are really good with design. Author House is kind of UK based, kind of really accented here. iUniverse kind of has a good live chat thing where you can talk to professionals, and Ex Libris is really focused on the author. So I started publishing last summer. I had a backlog of study guides which are coming round, and that, you know, a mainstream publisher wasn't going to publish, and the educational publishers that want to do it were offering no advance. And in fact, talking to Jamie's really interesting on contracts. The contracts that you're signing for some of these no advance stuff are terrible, and so, you know, really think twice before you get a contract and you think, oh great, someone's going to publish my book, and you're not getting any advance. You can get locked into quite nasty deals. I graduated on using CreateSpace to doing different types of things, and I think I've got better. I mean, you'll see the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, that's the thing I just published a month or so ago, and I think I've got a bit better about designing things and working out how things are done and doing covers and that sort of thing. It is very useful for me in terms of my teaching because it locks into that, but it can be a calling card. It's really easy to change. I mean, I published a book called Yob Nation, and shockingly, me and the editor and the copy editor didn't spot a few really basic spelling errors of names. Bloody thing couldn't be changed, you know, and it was really embarrassing. Now, you know, if you're publishing your own book, you can just go in like that, change it if I notice a mistake, and it's done. It is a good tool for planning over the years. Those are some of the covers. And I've started, the really exciting thing I found, I started publishing a couple of other authors, you know, and I found as a publisher of other writers, it is amazing. Because I am working intensely with one or two writers, it may be like an experience of being a kind of editor, but you've got time because you can work with someone and actually really have an interesting conversation about their work. Obviously you're choosing because you're interested in it. And I've learned so much from dealing with someone else as an editor. So I would strongly recommend, if you're interested, you know, team up with someone and work with them, and they can help you and you can help them. And you know, think about publishing, how you might do that. It is a privileged job to be an editor when you're working with someone you like. My rules are little money as possible. I'm not going to pay. I'm not in for the vanity. I'm not going to pay just to get my book out there. I need help with cover design and things like that, something I still think interested in. I'm free to experiment. All I have to waste is my time, not my money. Learning a bit about book design is interesting. I've got a website there which is really good, free materials on how to do that. Proofreading is a big one. I hate doing it, but I've learned a lot about proofreading since publishing my own stuff, which I never had thought about before. My recommendations are: be humble, be prepared for people to laugh and say your book's crap and that kind of thing. You know, think about what you really want from your writing life. Devise a career strategy, you know, for yourself. Think long term. Think over the 20 years. Self-publishing kind of gives you the chance to think about what you really want to publish over a kind of long span. Explore. I mean, I think it's linked also with career stuff. It's interesting hearing Evie talking about this. You know, explore. Personally, I'm a teacher. We need more of you guys in teaching, in government, in the law system, whatever. Try and think about how you can combine a creative career with something else that will help you, you know, develop as a writer. Look very carefully at the contracts you sign with a publisher. You can get locked into stuff that can be quite scary. Experiment. I think there's nothing to lose, and you know, courses like this MA are great for that. Get a really good tip is get a non-fiction string to your bow. Non-fiction is what genuinely sells. So maybe your real thing is creative writing, but draw out a theme that you're really interested in, and maybe think about that, because doing a journalism course for just 6 weeks, NCJ course, if you haven't done one, is tremendously useful for making some money out of writing. You know, in the last few weeks, I've made a lot of money just by selling articles based on some of the kind of ideas in my books. And I'm able to do that because, you know, I've been trained as a journalist and I know how to kind of churn it out when I need to. Work with like-minded people. Set up a collective. You know, Blackbird Books, for example, is online, is really interesting, the way they're doing things. And yeah, you know, email me, talk to me if you want to talk further about it. Okay, thank you.